The Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, the IMF spring meeting pushes on its global agenda, asks countries like Sri Lanka to remain in the program and assures success despite setbacks.
It was ambitious, much needed, but now it's delivering results.
The SME sector laments the government's failure to ensure that injunction to the Parate law be gazetted as banks continue to implement the collection of debts. Stock market mostly in the red the whole week with varying signals from the IMF and the Sri Lankan government. And gold and oil spikes amidst another long-term escalation in the Middle East slowly takes shape.
From Studio 24, here's Sina Mayadune.
Good evening and thank you for joining us this Friday night. We start today as well in Washington, D.C. with the IMF World Bank spring meetings. Sri Lanka has participated in the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable in Washington, D.C., which brings together debtor countries and creditors. This is in a bid to build a greater common understanding among key stakeholders on debt sustainability, debt restructuring challenges, and ways to address them. Finance State Minister Shehan Singha and Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandanal Veerasinghe attended the roundtable, an initiative led by the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and G20 countries.
The participants have reviewed progress on the work to improve debt restructuring processes and timelines and to help address the debt vulnerabilities. They also discussed priority areas for the work going forward. At the end of the meeting, the IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, World Bank Group President Ajay Banga and the Finance Minister of Brazil Fernando Haddad, the co-chairs of the GSDR, issued the GSDR's second co-chairs progress report. The compilation looks at the significant progress achieved in the international debt agenda in the recent months. There has been an agreement in January 2024 between Ghana and the official bilateral creditors, an agreement in March 2024 between Zambia and the representatives of their Eurobond holders, and the progress in the discussion for other cases including Sri Lanka and Suriname. The report says the GSDR has contributed to this progress by providing a platform to advance understanding among key stakeholders on complex and critical issues. It has also helped forge consensus on how processes could be improved in the future cases. The report also mentioned that ongoing debt restructurings have continued to make progress since October 2023, both within the common framework with Zambia and Ghana and outside the CF with Sri Lanka and Suriname.
Krishna Srinivasan, Director of the Asia and Pacific Department at the International Monetary Fund, says that there was hope for a deal with Sri Lanka's sovereign bondholders despite some setback. He made these comments during a media briefing held yesterday on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank spring meetings in Washington, D.C.
The program on which Sri Lanka embarked upon was ambitious, much needed, but now it's delivering results. I don't want to jinx it because the road ahead is going to be harder, but there is progress being made, and both in terms of growth, you talked about recovery, and in terms of inflation. Now, you talked about, again, let me just note that, as I said, that there's still much more work to be done, both in terms of the fiscal policy, in terms of building reserves, in terms of becoming resilient. You talked about debt restructuring negotiations. I think they're progressing well in terms of with the official creditors. There's been good progress. It's been quite encouraging, the news there. With private creditors, the discussions are ongoing. You know this for a fact that we don't get involved in these negotiations at all. We just watch to see what's happening. We provide input to the partners who are in the negotiation, both on the macro framework and what's falling ahead. So my sense is that there are some setbacks on the private sector restructuring, but again, both parties are talking. So I'm hopeful that there will be some conclusions down the road. But again, the program is delivering on what's expected to do. Growth is picking up, inflation is coming down, reserves are going up, but the road ahead is still difficult. So you have to keep pursuing with those reforms, both on the fiscal side and in terms of the structural reform side, including on governance and reducing corruption. Those are areas which are very, very important.
Professionals in the tourism sector says that the government must push towards creating a cohesive voice for Sri Lanka in order to attract more tourists to the country. Speaking to the Nightly Business Report, hotelier Hiran Kure said that if the government can come up with that said one voice plan for the tourism sector, then the dividends of it can continue to trickle down to the economy.
We have to be thankful that tourism's done well. Beginning from about the December of 2022, it was a slow growth, but since then it has grown steadily. Especially in the last 3 months, we've seen a strong growth in arrivals from different parts of the world, which speaks well of our government's initiatives and the private sector's initiatives. We have to be thankful that the President and our Minister have been really focused on driving tourism to greater lengths. What we now require from the government is a concentrated effort to position the country. This is something that the private sector has always been asking, and this has not really taken place up to now. So once that happens, with more positioning and promoting the destination, we can see far greater growth in the coming months. We are confident that with the private sector's efforts as well, that Sri Lanka's tourism will continue to blossom in time to come.
Despite the government's efforts to revive the small and medium enterprises sector of Sri Lanka amidst the economic crisis, many SMEs continue to close their doors in various parts of the country. Speaking to the Nightly Business Report, the chairman of the Sri Lankan United National Businesses Alliance, Tanya Abesundara, said that the government must take steps to ensure that the SME sector survives in order for the nation's economy to thrive.
We are thankful in a way to the President of trying to give us this 10-month breathing space, temporarily suspending the Parate execution. This was brought with the help of the Justice Minister and the Minister of Industries. So we are thankful for all counterparties in trying to help us. But this is not still being made a law or act. So the banks are going ahead with implementing the executions as per date even this very moment. So this is a sad situation, though the benefit and the opportunity is being given to us for a 10-month breathing space. We are not having the benefit since this is not been made as law. So we are urging the President, please help us out. Because we are the economical backbone. We have become an economical strength to this country for the past 74 years. But at this moment when we are suffering, we are hoping the President, who has come forward in trying to help us, will give us the benefit that is due to us. Thank you.
We're going in for a short commercial break. More business news on the other side. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka's bond yield rates were broadly steady in early trading. A bond maturing on 15th of December 2026 was quoted at 11.32 by 40%, up from 11.35 by 40%. A bond maturing on 15th of September 2027 was quoted at 11.95/12%, from 11.90/12.5%. Meanwhile, the Colombo Stock Exchange indices ended in the negative territory, with both losing about a percentage point at the end of today's trading. Let's get the breakdown of the market performance, and for that, standing by is Zahima Jihad from SC Securities.
ASPI dipped to a two-week low of 11,753 points today, recording losses for the second consecutive session. The market saw a very dull sentiment today with somewhat of a subdued participation. Also, banking sector counters and some blue chips saw heavy selling pressure during the day, pushing the index to the red territory. Soon as the market opened, we saw ASPI plunging to an intraday low of 11,691 before gradually picking up, However, post midday, index remained mostly flat amidst the rising selling pressure from retail investors. Profit taking on banking sector counters continued, with HNB, Commercial Bank and DFCC seeing a sizable selling pressure. Also, heavyweights like LIOC and MELS too witnessed profit booking during the day. But however, uncertainties surrounding the external debt restructuring is one of the key reasons impacting the investor sentiment. So, with this negative sentiment, market turnover declined to LKR 1.5 billion, with a 43% collective contribution coming from the diversified financials and banking sectors. Also, foreign investors turned to net buyers during today's session, recording a marginal inflow of LKR 5 million, with John Keel's Holdings, Ambient Capital and Haley's Fabric dominating the inflows.
So how did the Colombo stock market perform during the week, with much news coming from Washington, D.C. regarding our nation's debt restructuring efforts? For a comprehensive analysis of the weekly performance of the Colombo Stock Exchange, let's go to Risita Pereira, who's standing by from SC Securities.
Yes, in this week's recap, the all-share price index closed at 11,753 points, recording a decline of 2.3%. The S&P SL20 index closed at 3,456 points with a decline of 3.2%. The average daily turnover was recorded at 1.95 billion with an average shares traded volume of 95.5 million. The top gainers of the week were Softlogic Holdings, Ambient Capital, Browns Beach Hotels, LOLC Finance and Capital Alliance. Moving on to the sector-wise performance, the consumer services continued its momentum while the banking and unbanking finance saw a reduced interest during the course of the week. Foreign purchases recorded 406 million and foreign sales at 550 million, recording a net foreign outflow of 145 million rupees.
Gold price surged to nearly $2,410 per troy ounce during the Asian session today. The safe haven yellow metal gains ground as risk aversion sweep across the financial markets following confirmation that Israeli missiles struck a site in Iran, exacerbating tensions in the Middle East. Analysts, meanwhile, say that the gains in the US dollar could limit the advance of the gold prices. Adding another layer to the gold price forecast, China's ongoing accumulation of gold reserves provides a substantial undercurrent supporting the market. Not only did the gold prices see a spike due to the tensions in the Middle East, but now global crude oil prices also surged more than 3% following reports of the Israeli missile attack. Brent futures saw an increase of $2.63, reaching $89.74 a barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate contract rose by $2.56 to $84.66 per barrel. Meanwhile, the United States has announced that it could reinstate sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry, which could disrupt its exports. Mexico also said earlier this month that it would cut back exports because of strong domestic demand. The Sri Lankan rupee remains steady against the US dollar at commercial banks in Sri Lanka today compared to yesterday. According to the Ceylon Bank, the buying and selling rates of the US dollar are unchanged at 295 rupees and 305.50 rupees respectively. Now let's have a look at how the rupee fared against other currencies during the day today. Going in for another commercial break. We'll see you on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Nawaloka Air Services and Maldivian Airlines celebrates their new route linking Sri Lanka and Maldives. The inaugural flight is set to take off on the 25th of this month, marking its milestone.
The Maldivian Airlines entrance to the Sri Lankan market was marked by the event held today. The new route connecting Colombo and Malé via Maldivian Airlines is expected to attract more tourists from the island nation. The launch event was held under the patronage of the chairman of Nawaloka Holdings, Dr. Jayantha Dharmadasa. Maldivian Airlines will operate 2 flights per week back and forth from Malé to Colombo. Nawaloka Air Services will act as Maldivian Airlines agent in Sri Lanka.
National Development Bank, a leading financial institution committed to promoting gender equality and diversity, proudly announces its achievement of the economic dividends for gender equality, also known as EDGE certification, for the 3rd certification cycle. The EDGE certification, the world's leading assessment methodology and business certification standard for gender equality, is awarded to organizations that demonstrate a strong commitment to gender parity in the workplace. By achieving this certification, once again, NDB Bank solidifies its position as a trailblazer in the financial sector for gender equality and diversity practices. Janashakti Life has recorded remarkable growth in the profitability for the financial year 2023, marked by a record profit before tax of 5.2 billion rupees, along with a resounding growth of 201% in profit after tax compared to 2022.
This achievement is the highest in the entire history of Janashakti Life. It underscores the company's robust financial health and the strategic proficiency in navigating market challenges. The key financial indicators such as capital adequacy ratio of 272%, a liquidity ratio of 3.9 times, an ROE of 27%, earnings per share of Lankan rupees 18.25 and Lankan rupees 3.4 billion in claim settlements solidify the prudent financial management from the perspective of all stakeholders. The company said that one of the key factors that contributed Janashakti Life's success during the year under the consideration has been their proactive approach to managing marketing risk, particularly in anticipating and navigating interest rate fluctuations.
HVA Foods plc, a member of the George Stewart Group, is pleased to announce the following appointments to its board of directors. Accordingly, Graham Stork has taken up duties as Director and Chief Executive Officer, while Samantha Ranatunga has taken up duties as Independent Non-Executive Director and Chairman. HVA Foods plc is a dynamic subsidiary within the George Stewart conglomerate, which was founded by local entrepreneur and tea professional Rohan Fernando. Both Samantha Ranatunga and Graham Stork, who are leading professionals with proven expertise in their respective fields, are dedicated to propelling Helidev and HVA Foods plc to new heights. Sri Lanka's private budget airline Fitzair first flight from Dhaka to Colombo landed at the Bandaranaike International Airport on Wednesday at 4:30 a.m. with 120 passengers. The low-cost airline's flight departed from Hazrat Shahjalal International Airport in Dhaka on its maiden voyage on the 17th of April at 2 a.m.
Fitzair will initially operate 2 weekly flights every Wednesday and Sunday on the Dhaka-Colombo route with Airbus A320 aircraft with 164 seat capacity. The return flight will depart Colombo every Tuesday and Saturday at 9:30 p.m. and will reach Dhaka at 1 a.m. The no-frills carrier offers return fares to Bangladesh starting at 58,900 rupees. The airline plans to launch another frequency on the route in the next 2 months and 2 more by the end of the year. It currently operates direct flights from Dubai, Malé and Chennai from the airline hub in Colombo.
Aiken Spence Hotels has once again ranked among the top companies in LMD's most awarded Hall of Fame, solidifying its position as one of the most distinguished entities in Sri Lanka. Garnering an impressive tally of 52 awards throughout 2023, the company secured the first place in hospitality sector and the 4th place among the nation's most honest establishments. With an extensive presence spanning Sri Lanka, Maldives, India and Oman, Aiken Spence Hotels boasts a portfolio of 17 properties. This geographical diversity underscores the company's commitment to sustainable hospitality across diverse cultures and landscapes. We're going in for a short commercial break. We'll see you on the other side with more business news. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Most Asian stocks fell sharply today after reports of Israeli strikes on Iran further ramped up concerns over worsening geopolitical conditions in the Middle East. Persistent warnings on U.S. interest rates also battered sentiment. The reports severely dented risk appetite, sparking broad-based losses across Asian markets. Japanese stocks were the worst hit, with Nikkei 225 index falling 3.4%, while the Topix lost 2.3%. Australia's ASX 200 index slid nearly 2%, while losses in heavyweight tech stocks dragged South Korea's Kospi down 3.1%. U.S. stocks were mixed after the close yesterday, as gains in the telecoms, utilities and financial sectors led shares higher, while losses in the technology, consumer services and industrial sector led shares lower. At the close in NYSE and the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose by 0.06%, while the S&P 500 index declined by 0.22% and the Nasdaq Composite Index declined 0.52%.
U.S. stocks ended mostly lower on Thursday as investors digested the latest batch of economic data and comments from Federal Reserve officials who suggested the central bank is unlikely to cut interest rates in the near future. The Dow finished roughly flat but in positive territory. The S&P 500 shed 0.2%, while the Nasdaq dropped 0.5%. Labor market data out Thursday, as well as a gauge of manufacturing, showed a resilient U.S. economy in the face of higher interest rates. New York Federal Reserve President John Williams cited the robust economy as a reason to hold rates steady, while Atlanta Federal Reserve President Raphael Bostic said he is, quote, comfortable being patient as inflation is returning to the Fed's 2% target slower than previously expected.
Netflix announced that it would stop reporting subscriber numbers each quarter, signaling years of customer gains in the streaming wars may be coming to an end.
The streaming giant's shares fell after it reported a large batch of new customers in the first quarter, but gave a revenue forecast that missed analyst targets. The stock fell over 4% in after-hours trade. Netflix said its ad-supported streaming plans helped add over 9 million customers, bringing its global total up to nearly 270 million by the end of March. The company's executives have urged investors to now focus on revenue and operating margins rather than customer additions.
Well, that's the Nightly Business Report for this week. We appreciate your company. I hope to see you again on Monday at the same time. Thank you for joining us. I'm Sina Maya Durne. Have a good night.